I watched Sonic movie 3 for the second time now, and wow, it's been a while since a movie has really made me feel understood, or I guess emotionally seen and understood. And surprisingly enough, this third Sonic movie does a really good job of that. If you guys weren't aware, I did make a video regarding Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and how that movie made me feel seen, and I discussed certain topics like dealing with grief and grasping the concept of death, and how I am very much afraid of death, and I hate feeling loss. I hate losing people who are close to me. And even though I've always gravitated towards Shadow because he's always felt like such a relatable character to me personally, and so I was pleasantly surprised that Sonic movie 3 didn't inherently hold back talking or discussing certain themes that I'm gonna discuss for you right now. Basically, most Sonic fans know that Shadow loses his best friend Maria. Everyone probably knows that story by now. It was the one true person he had in his life. It was basically his sister. He basically lost his sister. That's one way to look at it. And it was at the hands of the very people who created him. Gun kills Maria, and despite it being at Gun's hands, like they're the ones responsible for her death, they still put Shadow into stasis for 50 years, and it's not until then that he's able to break free thanks to a Robotnik. But in the Sonic movie, he gets freed because of Gerald Robotnik, but that's besides the point. And although there are changes to Sonic movie 3 regarding the whole Shadow and Maria subplot, it still hit really hard, for me at least, because as I mentioned before, the way that Shadow's always been this character who, at first glance, he seems like such a loner, like such an edgy guy, but there's so much more depth to his character that I often feel like goes overlooked, unnoticed even. And I like that with this movie, they were really not afraid to tell his story, to show that losing somebody is not easy, and a lot of the times when you lose somebody, you're more likely than not to down spiral. And as I mentioned in my Puss in Boots video, when I lost my grandma, it was awful. It was an awful experience. It's been like 2 years now, and I'm still not over it. And just like Shadow, I took it heavy. It made me a very angry and bitter person, and it jeopardized a lot of my current relationships and friendships and whatnot. I made some bad choices, self-destructive ones even. But there's a lesson in all this in the movie, and this is getting into spoilers. Near the final part of the movie, when Sonic and Shadow are fighting, when Sonic punches the hell out of Shadow and they end up on the moon, Shadow tells Sonic, like, go ahead, finish me off, do what I couldn't do, essentially. And you might think, oh, well, yeah, he's just like, you won, you might as well win, take your victory. But it actually goes a lot deeper than that. And what I mean by that is, think about it. He lost the one person he truly cared about, and his goal was to get rid of everybody, including himself. So there were some low-key underlying suicidal thoughts, tendencies that were going on with Shadow's character. I feel like that's something it's never really discussed fully. And so I think when you put all that together, it does make that interaction all the more depressing, because again, he has nothing else left to lose. What's dying gonna do? At least in his mind, he'd be reunited with Maria, right? At least then, he won't have to deal with the rest of humanity. He won't have to deal with anybody else. He can just be free of it all. Obviously, Sonic listens to his heart. He opens his heart and he realizes, like, no, like, this is not the right thing to do. It's not good to give into anger, to give into all of these ugly, dangerous, dark thoughts. He remembers Tom's words about how he needs to listen to his heart and be true to himself and know when to do the right thing. And, Shadow, he's confused by this. He goes, you were about to win. You were gonna win. Why didn't you just finish me off? And Sonic's like, that wouldn't be right, because, well, yes, I'm getting my revenge. What is that gonna accomplish? It does go to show that, realistically speaking, when you choose to listen to all of those dark thoughts, when you choose to listen to hate, when you choose revenge, you're just doing yourself a disservice. And obviously, I know when you lose somebody, it's very easy to focus on the pain you feel now that they're gone. As Sonic says in the movie, you have to just hold on to that love you felt for them and carry that with you always. Think of all the good memories, and of course the pain doesn't go away, but living with all that much hatred and agony and pain in your heart It's not the way anybody who you lose would want to be remembered by. And again, that's why for me specifically, I know there's like the joke that everybody's like, oh my god, Shadow's just like me. You know, oh my god, he's just like me for real. Oh my god, he's got the tism just like me. Which, like, sure, that could be a whole video in and of itself, but I clinged more onto the way that they handled his grief and just depressing story in the third movie. And wow, they read me like a fucking book. They truly understood that losing somebody that you love so much, it's never gonna be easy to deal with, but you quite literally just have to open your heart. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but as long as you remember to think about all of the positives in your life and opening yourself up to new relationships and new feelings, thoughts, you'll be okay. And there's always a chance to be better than who you are in the moment. There's always a choice to do the right thing, to be a good person. And that's why Sonic Movie 3 made me feel emotionally seen and understood.